While you're still on that issue, because all of these things, they're all incorporated into the bill.
Yes.
Now, the bill will become an act when the National Assembly signs off on it. And before we get to that stage, what's the feeling you have now with this new or the latest version that we have? What's your feeling about the House or the National Assembly's response or reaction to what they've got?
The because some of the responses from the speaker, deputy speaker, that it's long overdue, and the Senate president. These are normal responses we expect from the National Assembly, But coming to the nitty-gritty, the passage, and mind you also, some people, some of the IOCs are not too happy with the content of this bill. And also, because there's a belief that there should be a meeting point. I read Mr. Sumonu's statement as regards the bill,
being MD
the MD of Shell. There should be a meeting point between the IOC and the government. And nobody's talking about the communities. And so to me, also, there are some areas where some people have felt that the complete deregulation of the sector, there ought to be structures in place. And that's where I see challenges with the National Assembly, because some senators from the north might not be completely carried with the content of the bill. Because also some provisions in the bill that puts the ownership of these mineral resources completely at the doorstep of the federal government. Some members of the House or some senators from the Niger Delta also might not be too, because there have been agitations that ownership should dwell squarely on the people. And then government can now, make create laws that will ensure that you drill what belongs to you and then pay tax or royalty to federal government. So these are some areas where also, these are conflicting areas where the National Assembly had always had problem with this bill. And so that's why we should, I believe it's not here to huru for us, in spite of the fact that Mr. President is asking for expeditious passage. I don't think it will be given same in the National Assembly.
More than 2, 3, 4 readings and reviews.
Apart from that, gradually, we're just discussing it now. Gradually, you begin to hear and see input from different regions of the country. And mind you, Nigeria is largely, dependent on the oil. And so some people had felt over the years that they've been shortchanged. And so for this, it's not enough for you to just come and say, we'll give you 10% of whatever income it's coming from some companies. And so we're trying to unbundle NNPC, and because we know the antecedents of government and the way government does business in Nigeria.
Okay, let's ask, I was going to ask Zaka Bala. Now, when you look at the fact that 2008 was when this bill first came to the fore, and it's taken 4 years to have what is deemed as a final version, 200 and something pages. Having looked at that, do you think it contains all of the elements and components and the issues that's been raised over the last 4 years?
Yes.
It addresses all of them?
Yes, and let me start this way, because Barrister Liboros said a lot of things. The first thing I would really plead with Nigerians is, we know that document is fairly voluminous, but it's not that voluminous to the extent where we shouldn't take our time to review that. Because just one aspect of the Australian oil company aspect, just an aspect that just had to do with petroleum, rents and taxes amendment, had 76 pages. Only that. Only just adjustment on rents and taxes, just amendment, had 76 pages. So, in the case of the Nigerian PIB, if it is 223 pages, and I'm telling you, looking at that constituency called the Nigerian oil and gas industry, it is not too big a document. What we need to do is to take our time, read these things and digest it. And when we want to read, and because I will answer your question, and when we're trying to read these things, we shouldn't be a bit skewed or sentimental to our respective constituencies, like I am just a host community, I am federal government, I am IOC. Because when you look at yourself as IOC, first of all, you just look at pure profitability, your income statement, and your statement of financial position, which other people call balance sheet. And when you look at yourself as host community, you only look at biodegradation, bioremediation. So you tend to be a bit skewed. And when you look at yourself as federal government, you just look at fiscal regimes. And that may not be fair. And now straight to what your questions are. Today, based on the document we have, the PIB is good to go. Is good for passage because, one, the Nigerian oil and gas industry today is matured by all forms of assessment and ranking in the whole world. The industry is matured. So when you're talking about laws like this or passage of a bill to become laws, there are basic things you look for. You look at the international appeal of what you want to call a law for your country. Then you look at local tolerance and acceptance. And once you are satisfied with this, that is good to pass. Because as long as you continue to go, it will end up being like an unquoted work in progress. You hope to review it one day. But I want a situation where somebody should just sit in the Americas or in Europe or Asia, pick my petroleum industry bill in Nigeria. If he or she has an interest in expanding business frontiers, especially towards the oil and gas industry, that person should look at that and say, this is fair, and be willing to come. I'm just trying to set the ground because that's how we need to go. There was some...
I saw Victoria shaking her head when you were talking. Did you object to anything that he said?
Not all of them. He said the PIB is ready for passage.
It's good.
It's good to go as it is. I don't think that is completely true. The PIB, I agree, this is not the time to politicize the PIB, to be sentimental about whether we are north or south.
We spent 4 years doing
We spent a lot of time doing that. The PIB should go, but you need to come closer to look at a lot of provisions in the PIB. There are so many conflicting provisions that you need to deal with, or else we'll come back to where we're coming from. He said something about the Host Community Trust Fund, which is, I think, a brilliant introduction to the PIB. That section didn't talk about administrative framework. How will these funds be administered? The bill is silent. So if you create a fund and you don't talk about how the fund will be administered, that is a problem. It talks about a host community, does not define what a host community is. There are so many communities that have pipelines crisscrossing through the entire community. Are they host communities? They suffer the same impact like communities where the wellhead is situated, assuming there is an oil pollution. All those clarity, we need to have that degree of clarity. There's also another problem. The PIB, the versions that we did our Spaces for Change, we did organize a web seminar, bringing together industry experts to look at various provisions of the PIB. And we found out the next day, the minister released what was described as the regional version. The version before then had taken out the Petroleum Equalization Fund, for instance. The one that the minister brought back reinstated the petroleum. At the same time, that was Section 100 provides for the Petroleum Equalization Fund. Section 221 talks about a deregulated regime, that the petroleum products will be subject to forces of market and supply. So there's a conflict. The Petroleum Equalization Fund operates like a subsidy. What it simply does is to reimburse petroleum marketers for expenses incurred for selling at benchmark prices. So you are restating a subsidy. We have spent so much time fighting. In January, they told us they were fighting subsidy. They brought it back, and at the same time, we've told the world that what this bill is coming to do is to deregulate the transit sector. You are saying two things in one document. It can't go. There's another question you asked me at the beginning, that the market woman on the street is more interested in how fuel, in getting to the filling station, buy 100 naira, 10 or 1 or 2. Usually they don't buy more than 5 liters of fuel. They just want availability of fuel. We had our lawmakers spend 2 months recess. We didn't see one lawmaker convene a hearing. We know how much they take home as allowances for constituency projects. We didn't see one lawmaker across, how many do we have? How many? Not one. Yeah, not one. You know, what about the House of Representatives? We couldn't have one say, oh, the market women in my area, come together. There's this bill, it's too voluminous, I don't understand it, but tell me what you think. Tell me what you think. All of that information is very critical. They are not doing that.
So sensitization
Yeah,
is a major
it's a major issue. It's a major issue. Then we are talking about the communities. Of course, there are so many issues that the communities, like at Spaces for Change, we're very much interested in what happens to the communities. You said something that about the bill, and which I disagree again. That bill is so voluminous that you need different experts in different areas. You can't have one person who can understand that bill from the beginning to the end. It's not possible. So you need different kinds of experts. So with that, all those biases, the nuances is going to be reflected in the analysis. That is a fact.